All right, everybody, we are back this week for UFC Vegas 97, Burns versus Brady, with a phenomenal main event in the welterweight division between the number 6 ranked former title challenger in Gilbert Burns taking on the number 8 ranked fighter who's on the cusp of a title shot, especially with an impressive win here in Sean Brady. Then in the co-main event of the evening, you have a banger in the 125-pound women's flyweight division between the former flyweight title challenger and former strawweight champion in the number 6 ranked Jessica Bate Estaca Andrade taking on the number 8 ranked Natalia Silva. So without any further ado, let's get this started and step into the ring. Alright guys, we're back for the breakdown for UFC Vegas 97. Obviously, we had a break week last week. I don't like break weeks. It gives me less content to create, but I can always come up with something. Just go and look at my UFC 306 O'Malley versus Davalishvili fight promo and fight trailer. I really like making those. It's just you got to be careful with the YouTube algorithm. And you got to be careful with the copyrights, man. Like, putting that footage in there, it's always hit or miss. It either looks really good or it doesn't. You got to try to keep the cuts of footage, like, under 8 seconds. I kind of figured that out, and I think that has a lot to do with it. But I had a Fluffy Hernandez breakdown that I was ready to upload. And no matter what I did, no matter how many times I changed the filters, I, cut out the logos, it just wouldn't let me upload. So I don't know. There must be some blockage on that video in particular. But yeah, this card's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, I think this is a solid fight card. I think there's a lot of really competitive fights on this card as well. And yeah, I mean, we're gonna get right into it. I'm gonna be skipping the breakdowns on 3 fights, and the rest we're going to break down. Well, I'm going to be skipping Brendan Marotte versus Isaac Dulgarian. I love Isaac Dulgarian, but there's not much to break down there. Isaac smash round 1 or round 2 to get him back in the win column. He should be fighting a much higher level opposition after that fight that he should have won against Christian Rodriguez. And then we're going to be skipping Jacqueline Amorim versus Vanessa Demopoulos. Death, taxes, and women's MMA. This is just one I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on. There is the opportunity that the underdog comes through in Demopoulos, but the jiu-jitsu of Amorim might prove to be the difference in this fight, and she could win via submission or ground and pound TKO. I think if Amorim wins, it's inside the distance. If Vanessa Demopoulos wins, it's probably a submission finish, or I'm sorry, a split decision. Maybe bet Demopoulos by split decision. I kind of think that's probably her only win condition. But, yeah, let's kick it off with the first fight up in the middleweight division. You got a battle between Andre Petroski, who's 11-4, taking on Dylan Butka, coming off the Contender Series, who's 7-3, who's coming off that second round TKO to Cesar Almeida. Listen, guys, I think Andre Petroski's the better fighter. I think he's stronger. I think he has more powerful strikes on the feet. But I also know that this guy does not have any form of durability, and if you clip him with a good shot, you can put him out. You can put him on Queer Street and you can knock him out. There is no world, even against a fighter like Dylan Butka, where Andre Petroski should be a minus 325 favorite. No realm, stretch, or figment of the imagination should put a guy like Petroski, who is as fragile and who has as many durability issues as this guy, as this big of a favorite. Budka is strong, he's powerful, he's a really good wrestler. He's gonna make Petroski work for his takedowns and his positions on the mat. I do think that both of these guys are gonna have cardio issues when we get to the midpoint of the second round and into the third. I have seen Petroski push past those cardio issues, but I also think that Dylan Butka has big power in his punches. He has a lot of power, and if he clips Petroski on the chin, he can easily put him away. Now, the better fighter is Petroski. The fighter who has better and higher level of competition is Petroski. But again, those durability issues, that always rears its ugly head when you really look at this type of fight. I think this fight should be maybe minus 200 Petroski, plus 160 for Dylan Butka. I think at plus 260, in terms of a bet, it's Budka money line or it's Petroski by sub, round 2, round 3. But honestly, I like Budka here. I think Dylan Budka can win this fight. He has a lot of really solid wrestling. He pushes a hard pace. He will break down and you know, kind of not quit, but he will tend to tire out. But the thing is, with a guy like Petroski, you don't have the technical striking or the power or the finesse that a guy like Cesar Almeida has, to where it's going to put Budka in a lot of danger even if he does get tired. Now, Petroski has really good front chokes, really good front headlock series, from the Darce to the guillotine to the anaconda choke. Like, if he shoots a bad shot, Petroski can grab his neck and choke him. But, I mean, Petroski pretty much got knocked out with a hip by Jacob Malkoun, and Malkoun is not a bad fighter. I don't like the guy. I've never been a big proponent of the guy's fighting style and the way that he fights, but he's not bad, and he continues to prove me wrong in a lot of spots. But Dylan Budka, man, I think he can get the job done here as a big underdog. I think a lot of people are sour on him after the performance against Almeida, but I think he can make Petroski work in the grappling exchanges. I think he can work his way back up to the feet, get into some scrambles that are going to make Petroski tired, and I think he's going to have the better striking on the feet, and I think he's going to have bigger power on the feet that is going to hurt a guy like Petroski with all the durability issues, the concerns, the fact that he gets rocked and hurt, and if he does get rocked and hurt, he can't really find a way to come back into fights. Once it starts going downhill, he kind of just continues the downward trend and tends to fall off quicker and quicker and quicker, you know, as the fight goes on. So give me the plus 260 underdog. Give me Dylan Budka. I'm going to go Dylan Budka by second round TKO. I do think he will find a big shot on the chin of Petroski and knock him out. And as long as he can survive on the mat and work his way back up to the feet, or potentially create a sweep or threaten something that makes Petroski back off a little bit, he is going to be the better striker on the feet. Even though Petroski's not a bad striker, I think I'd give the advantage to Budka. So give me Dylan Budka, second round TKO. Maybe ground and pound, maybe he hurts him on the feet. But yeah, I just can't trust the durability of Petroski, especially as a huge favorite. So give me Dylan Budka via TKO. Up next, we have a battle in the featherweight division between Yi Jia, who comes in with a record of 24-4, taking on Gabriel Santos, who comes back with a record of 10-2. If you were going to tell me that Gabriel Santos would be 0-2 in the UFC after that razor-thin decision loss against Lerone Murphy, I would tell you I'm lying, or I would tell you that you're lying. And Santos, listen, I'm going to be honest. I had a bet on Lerone Murphy in that fight, so I needed Murphy to win. I'm going to be honest, I think Santos won that fight. I went back and rewatched it. I think Santos won 2 rounds. I think it was close, but I do think Santos did enough. Now, in this fight, it's going to be guys who are very good wrestlers, very good grapplers, very good top positions, and, you know, somewhat decent strikers, but they leave a lot of openings. I think this is a must-win spot for Santos because I do think that this guy has a lot of potential. I really do. He lost his last fight to David Onama, and even in that fight, he looked really good. He was controlling the fight. He was outstriking him. He was landing those kicks to the body from the opposite stance. He was landing the 1-2s down the middle. He was threatening with submissions. He was getting takedowns. And when you look at a guy like Yi Jia, he's not afraid to strike. And I would say that I think when it comes to the cleaner boxing, I think Yi Jia has the cleaner boxing, and I think Santos has the cleaner kickboxing. He has better kicks to the body. He has better low kicks. And when it comes to the grappling, I honestly think it's kind of a wash, but I would say in terms of control, in terms of takedowns, in terms of pressure, that all goes to Yi Jia. And the only bad thing is that Santos is very good off of his back. He throws up a lot of submissions. He'll throw up triangles. He'll throw up arm bars. He'll look to sweep. This guy doesn't just sit there and surrender positions. But neither does Yi Jia. Even if Gabriel Santos is the one who gets the takedowns against Yi Jia, he's not going to surrender a lot of top control time. Like, he's going to look for arm bars. He's going to look for sweeps. He's going to get into a scramble. Yi Jia has some of the best grappling scrambles, the best sit-outs to take the back, the best changing of direction and changing of positions. He never surrenders. Like, obviously, he'll get tired, and at certain points, he won't push as hard of a pace in terms of trying to scramble out of bad positions. But, man, I think he can out-scramble a guy like Gabriel Santos. I think Santos is the more dangerous fighter on the feet, but I also think Yi Jia has good enough striking to be able to stay competitive on the feet, and then has better wrestling and top control than Gabriel Santos. I like Santos. I don't want to see this guy go 0-3 in the UFC, because if he loses to a guy like Yi Jia, he might get cut. I'm just being honest with you. And I do think that the better striker from a technical perspective is Gabriel Santos, but I do think Yi Jia has decent striking. He has really solid low kicks, but he does have problems with calf kicks, and I think the calf kick of Santos, which gave Lerone Murphy a lot of trouble, could cause a movement issue for Yi Jia as the fight goes on. But I think the wrestling, I think the forward pressure, I think the ability to maintain control in those scrambles, I think Yi Jia is going to be able to control Gabriel Santos and win most of, if not all of the scrambles on the mat. And I think he wins this fight. He's a big underdog, and I was going back and forth. There was a part of me that wanted to pick Santos because I do think it's a must-win. And I'll just say, if Yi Jia wins this fight by decision, if he wins it by submission, do not cut Gabriel Santos. I know the UFC probably is going to want to, but this dude is a monster. Do not cut Gabriel Santos. I think he can have a really good career in the UFC. It's just been kind of bad luck in his first two fights, and I think this might be one of his toughest fights in his MMA career. Yi Jia is no joke. This guy has really good takedowns, really good takedown entries, really good pressure. He's going to have to watch out for shots up the middle, the knees, the uppercuts of Santos. Because I do believe the more dangerous striker and the better overall striker from a technical perspective and a power perspective is Gabriel Santos, but I do think Yi Jia can compete on the feet, but I really think he's going to win these scrambles. I think he's going to be able to threaten with submissions and win the positional war that goes on for most of this fight, and I think Yi Jia is going to win this fight either by a late sub or by decision. I'm going to go with decision. Give me Yi Jia 29-28 unanimous decision. I think he wins the rounds. I think he gets takedowns. I think he controls Gabriel Santos. I think he gets put in some submission scares, but he's able to fight out of it, and he's able to continue to control Santos. I could see Santos winning this fight, but I do think Yi Jia is going to have that forward pressure, is going to have the grappling and scrambling ability to outwork Gabriel Santos and get him down to the mat. And then when he is tired, I think Yi Jia is going to be able to push a pace on the feet and be able to land some good strikes of his own. So give me Yi Jia 29-28 unanimous decision. He's a pretty big underdog as well. Plus 190, minus 230 for Santos. So not a huge underdog, but give me the underdog again. Give me Yi Jia 29-28 unanimous decision. I think he outworks and outscrambles Gabriel Santos and wins this fight on the scorecards. But he could easily get clipped, so there's a possibility that he loses, but I like the dog in this fight because I know that he's going to fight for my money, and I know that he's going to push a pace from the minute the fight starts until the minute the fight ends. So give me Yi Jia. I also believe that he beat the Korean Tiger. I think he beat Jung Young Lee and should have won the road to UFC finals. I'll stand on that. I believe he won that fight 2-1. So I believe Santos probably did enough to beat Murphy, and I think Yi Jia did enough to beat Jung Young Lee. So I'm going to go with Yi Jia at the plus 190 dog, 29-28 split, unanimous decision. But close fight, and I'm really looking forward to it. All right, up next, another banger in the flyweight division between Felipe Daytona dos Santos, comes in with a record of 8-1, taking on Andre Lima, who's undefeated at 9 wins and no losses. I'm going to be honest, I think that this is another fight where this should probably be a pick'em. I truly believe that this fight should not be lined at almost a 2-1 favor for Andre Lima. I think it should be minus 130, plus 110, something like that on Felipe dos Santos. And there's no reason he should be a plus 150 or plus 160 underdog. Felipe dos Santos probably lost the fight to Victor Altamirano, but I will say I went back and rewatched it, and the more damage with the strikes and the bigger moments in the fight did come from dos Santos. Now, I picked him to win that fight. I was very confident in him as over a 2-1 favorite, and he didn't look great, but he landed good shots, he landed big shots, and he looked good overall. He just had problems with the takedowns, but he did work his way back up to the feet in some positions, but he gave up a lot of takedowns for most of that fight. And I do believe Andre Lima is probably going to look to resort to some grappling, look to take down Felipe dos Santos, look to control from the top, look to take the back. You know, I know that Andre Lima is mainly a striker inside the UFC, but I think he is going to be looking to use his grappling because of how easily Altamirano got those takedowns. But I don't think that Andre Lima is going to be able to push a heavy takedown pace for 15 minutes. And I think that the fighter who's probably going to be able to push a harder pace for 3 rounds is going to be Felipe Dos Santos. I think he's going to have the cardio advantage in the midpoint of the second round into the third round. I think he's going to be able to push harder than a guy like Andre Lima. Lima, won the fight via DQ against Igor Severino. And listen, he was getting dominated. He was getting dog-walked. He hurt him on the feet multiple times, but I think we were on our way to Severino either winning a decision or finding a submission because he was continuously taking down a guy like Andre Lima. Then Andre Lima fights Mitch Raposo on short notice, and he wins the fight pretty dominantly. But again, that's a fight where he probably should have got a finish, and he wasn't able to. And Mitch Raposo pushed forward, got takedowns of his own, and, made it somewhat competitive. It wasn't really competitive. We knew Andre Lima won that fight, but I feel like Mitch Raposo made it more competitive than it needed to be because he kind of deadened his leg early in that fight. Now, Felipe Dos Santos made his UFC debut against Manel Kape, and Kape just lost to Muhammad Mokaev. He didn't look that great in that specific fight, and that is a fight where we did pick Mokaev to win. But Dos Santos went to war with Mokaev. I mean, they stood in the pocket, they traded, he rocked Mokaev, Mokaev rocked him. But eventually Kape. He rocked Kape, Kape rocked him. And at the end of the day, that was a win for Dos Santos, even though he came out on the short end of the stick with a loss. He rocked one of the top contenders in a fight where nobody expected him to have any sense of success in that fight. Stood toe-to-toe, went to war. I mean, Dos Santos is a shoot-the-box guy. He's going to get in your face. He's going to push forward. He's going to look to land big combinations, and he is going to look to put you out. Andre Lima is a very, very good kickboxer. He stays on the outside. He uses that lead hand. He lands really solid calf kicks to the inside and outside of your leg. You can go with shots up top to the head. He has a good step-in elbow that we saw him land against Severino. He mixes up his combinations well. He maintains distance. And Dos Santos is a guy who can get clipped. He is a guy who probably has some durability issues, but this guy is going to push a pace. This guy is going to get in your face. He's going to put combinations together. He's going to throw knees. He's going to throw low kicks. He's going to throw head kicks. He's going to throw uppercuts. He's going to throw elbows. And he is going to look to win this fight from the minute the fight starts until the minute the fight ends. Now, he is probably going to run into some big counters, and there is a chance that Lima wins this fight by knockout, because he's very measured, he's very composed, and he controls the distance very well. He can catch Felipe Dos Santos coming in. He can land big counter shots. He can land good calf kicks. But I think the activity in this fight goes to Felipe Dos Santos. I think the forward pressure goes to Dos Santos. I think the times where the fight looks like it's closer to being finished for the majority of it goes to Dos Santos. And I think Dos Santos is going to win this fight, again, as an underdog. I don't know the last time where I picked 3 underdogs back to back to back to win a fight, or to win fights on a breakdown. But I really think that the number is off here. And I think Dos Santos, although he didn't look great in his last fight against Altamirano, and maybe that was a sign, I do think that this guy can win this fight against Andre Lima. Lima doesn't push a high pace. Lima doesn't have the highest volume when it comes to putting combinations out. Lima doesn't really push a heavy wrestling pace. The guy who's going to be landing more volume is Dos Santos. The guy who's going to be pushing the harder pace is Dos Santos. The guy who's going to be throwing more combinations is Dos Santos. The guy who's probably going to threaten with more submissions, either on top or off of his back, is probably going to be the guy from Shoot the Box and Felipe Dos Santos. So give me Felipe Dos Santos. Give me Felipe Daytona Dos Santos as the underdog again. I think plus 130, plus 150, no, plus 150, plus 154. I'm picking him to beat Andre Lima. I think this kid is legit. I think this kid is for real. He didn't look that great in his last fight, and although Lima looked good, I think Lima gets a little bit overhyped by the MMA masses and by the MMA casuals. I think people kind of overhype him a little bit, and I think Dos Santos is going to push a pace that Lima's not going to be able to keep up with. So give me Felipe Dos Santos to win this fight. I'm going to go with the decision again. It could be a finish. It could be a sub. It could be a TKO. This kid is very well-rounded. But give me Felipe Dos Santos, 29-28 unanimous decision. I think he wins this fight. I really do. I think he's the more well-rounded fighter, and I think he's going to have the higher output and have the bigger moments in the fight. All right, the next fight up and the last fight to break down on the prelims is in the light heavyweight division. We have Ryan Superman Spann, who comes in with a record of 21-10, taking on Ovince St. Preux, who comes back with a record of 27-17. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I know Ovince St. Preux won his last fight as a big underdog. I think that Ryan Spann is the type of fighter where you can probably win. Like, I'm not going to lie. Plus 280 on Ovince St. Preux, like, it might look good to some people. He has knockout power. He threatens with submissions. Ryan Spann does not have the best durability. If OSP clips him on the chin, he can 100% knock him out. But I'm not going to pick another underdog. I'm going to go with the favorite in Ryan Spann. I think he lands the faster punches. I think he's a lot faster than Ovince St. Preux at this point. He's taken less damage, just overall in a career, but he still takes a lot of punches. I think he's faster, more explosive. I think he's going to clip OSP on the chin. I think he's going to hurt him. But you never know with Ryan Spann because he is the kind of fighter where, sometimes he shows up and sometimes he doesn't. So I wouldn't be surprised if OSP was able to sneak out a sneaky decision, maybe like OSP by split decision, or even clip Ryan Spann on the chin. Like, there's definitely that possibility that he finds the opening, lands on the chin, and knocks him out. So I'm going to take Ryan Spann. This doesn't have to be a long breakdown. We don't have to sit here and explain the reasons why. He's younger, he's faster, he's more explosive, he has knockout power, he has submissions as well, he threatens with a guillotine. I think he's going to clip OSP on the chin, he's going to hurt him, and I think he's going to put him away, probably in the first round, I'm going to be honest with you. So give me Ryan Superman Spann to beat Ovince St. Preux, first round knockout. I think he puts him down early. I know he lost to Guskov, but I think Guskov is for real. He lost some other fights as well, but he did knock out Dominic Reyes, and Reyes came back and looked very good against Dustin Jacoby. But yeah, I'm going to go with Ryan Spann here, first round knockout. Younger, faster, more explosive, more ways to win. I think the speed is the biggest thing that's going to play out in this fight, and OSP's just not going to see the shots coming, and I think he's going to get hurt and get rocked. But if OSP was able to clip Ryan Spann coming in with a back step right hook or a left hook like he did against Alonzo Menefield, it wouldn't surprise me. If he was able to hit him with a head kick, OSP has very good head kicks, it wouldn't shock me. Probably fight ends by knockout is the best way to play the fight. I never like under 1.5, so under 2.5, but the number is probably going to be ridiculous. But give me Ryan Spann first round KO. If you're going to play it a different way, maybe fight ends by knockout or under 2.5 rounds. I mean, at this point, I think that's really the only way you can go. If you're going to take OSP, OSP by KO. But give me Ryan Spann first round knockout. I mean, there isn't really much to say about this fight besides what we already said. All right, Rong Zhu versus Chris Padilla. I don't understand why Padilla is over a 2-1 underdog. I don't get it. It makes zero sense to me. He came in on short notice as another underdog against James Yantrop, the same guy we picked as our underdog of the week last week. He lost that fight by split decision against Vyacheslav Borshchev. I don't think it should have been split, but I definitely think that Yantrop won the third round. But yeah, he came in, found the back, and choked him out. And Yantrop was kind of a big deal at that point. He was kind of high on a lot of people's radars. Rong Zhu, this guy's a decent striker, but he doesn't have a lot of grappling. He really doesn't. Not really good takedowns, not really good takedown defense, but he has big power on the feet. I watched a lot of Chris Padilla's fights before the UFC. This guy has decent striking, but a lot of his success is forward pressure, big takedowns, very powerful wrestler. Look to soften you up on the top, look to take your back, and look to sink in a rear naked choke. That's the game of a guy like Chris Padilla. He looks to rough you up, take your back, put the hooks in, and get your neck and choke you out. And that's just the way he is. He's forward pressure, a pressure fighter, getting in your face, pushing you up against the cage, getting the takedowns, beating you up with vicious ground and pound from the top, softening you up, and either beating you with ground and pound via TKO or taking your back and getting a sub. I think Chris Padilla wins this fight against Rong Zhu. Rong Zhu is explosive. I've seen Chris Padilla get knocked out. I actually saw him lose a fight that he was dominating for 2 rounds, ended up getting knocked out in the third round by his opponent after dominating, and I mean dominating the first 2 rounds. So, this guy probably doesn't have the best durability. He's 14-6 to 24-5 on the side of Rong Zhu. But I think the wrong fighter is favored here. And I think Chris Padilla should probably be a favorite. We haven't seen enough of him in the UFC to know how good he is, but I think that performance against Yantrop was very impressive. He found a way to take the back, won the scramble, put the hooks in, and got the choke. I've seen Rong Zhu get submitted by Ignacio Bahamondes. Now, I don't think Chris Padilla is on the level of a Bahamondes in terms of an overall mixed martial artist. I'm not saying that he's on the same level by any means, But I think the pressure, I think the forward pace, I think the wrestling, I think the takedowns, the ability to take the back, I think the grappling is really going to be the biggest difference here against Rong Zhu. I think he will get those takedowns. I think he will land ground and pound, and I think he will take his back and probably get another submission. It could be a TKO. It could be a sub. But I think Chris Padilla should probably be the favorite in this fight. Rong Zhu, explosive striker, good jab, good 1-2, good left hooks, throws combinations, but kind of loops a lot of his punches. But this guy's going to be the more powerful striker. He's going to be the more technical striker. And he's probably going to win this fight as long as it stays on the feet in terms of striking exchanges, because there are grappling exchanges on the feet with the pressure and cage wrestling. But I think the forward pressure, the wrestling, the takedowns, I think it's going to be too much for a guy like Rong Zhu. And I think that's going to be eventually just rinse and repeat. I think he's going to push forward, avoid some big shots, get into the clinch, drop down for the double, get the takedown, land some good ground and pound. And I think Chris Padilla wins this fight by submission again. I think he's going to find a way to take the back of Rong Zhu, and I think he's going to find a way to get a submission. I think, again, as a huge underdog, Chris Padilla is going to come through in this matchup. I could see Rong Zhu landing big shots on the feet because, like I said, I don't think Padilla has the best durability. I've seen him get knocked out in fights that he was dominating, and we know that Rong Zhu is going to push forward and push the pace and try to put you out. So I think if Rong Zhu wins this fight, it's probably KO. Probably pushes Chris Padilla back against the cage, lands some good boxing combinations, good left hook, good right hand, good shot to the body, good uppercut, good knee, and I mean, he's going to throw with bombs, but he's going to telegraph those shots, and it's going to make it easier for Padilla to duck under and get those takedowns, and I think the rinse and repeat with the wrestling, the ground and pound, and the submission attempts is eventually just going to be too much for Rong Zhu. So give me Chris Padilla to win this fight by late second, early third round submission. I'm going to go with a rear naked choke. Give me Chris Padilla late second round rear naked choke submission. I think he's going to outwork Rong Zhu, and he's going to win this fight. So again, we're going with the underdog. Give me Chris Taco Padilla, late second round rear naked choke submission. Maybe ground and pound, but Chris Padilla inside the distance. All right, up next is a battle in the lightweight division between Trevor Peek, who comes in at 9-2, taking on Yanal Ashmouz, who comes in with a record of 7-1, coming off of that loss via decision to Chris Duncan. We already know what we're going to talk about when it comes to Trevor Peek. This guy is not good technically. He's probably one of the worst fighters in terms of technique on the UFC roster, but the one thing that this guy has is heart. Heart, determination, and the will to never quit. And I really think that in this fight against Yanal Ashmouz, that's going to win him this fight. The forward pressure, the pace, the cardio, the ability to get in the face of the opponent, I really think that's going to win him this fight. This is also a guy that you seemingly can't finish. I mean, Chepe Mariscal hit him with everything but the kitchen sink. He got hit with so many shots against Charlie Campbell. Almost got submitted. Could have easily quit in that fight and given up, but he didn't. And I think against a guy like Yanal Ashmouz, he's the best when he's the hammer. He's not good when he's the nail. And Trevor Peek doesn't mind if he's the hammer or the nail. He can come forward, get in your face, throw 6-7 punches, hammer fists, back fist, front kicks, knees, just push a pace that a lot of people aren't going to be able to, keep up with for one. But it's not just keeping up with it. It's being able to continuously push that pace over and over and over again to the point where it breaks the opponent in terms of their confidence and in terms of their mentality. And I think that this is another fight where Trevor Peek can use that forward pressure. He can use those big bombs that he throws, those knees, those uppercuts, those overhands and back fists. He can use all that to push back a guy like Yanal Ashmouz and break him. And I really think that that's what's going to happen. I think Trevor Peek is going to break a guy like Yanal Ashmouz. I mean, if he's losing a decision to a guy like Chris Duncan, who, yes, is a smarter fighter than Trevor Peek, yes, is more technical than Trevor Peek, and has a better game plan, but the danger factor in this Trevor Peek fight compared to the Chris Duncan fight, it's night and day. And at any point, Trevor Peek can spark Yanal Ashmouz. And I think the minute he gets clipped hard, he's going to be backing up, and Trevor Peek's just going to continue to move forward. I think Trevor Peek is going to finish this fight. I think he's going to TKO Yanal Ashmouz. I think that forward pace, that pressure, that craziness, that wildness, that zero sense of technicality that Trevor Peek has with that forward pressure, I think it's going to break a guy like Yanal, and I think he's going to TKO him. I don't know if it's going to be with a punch, a knee, a kick. He's just going to continue to push forward, continue to throw combinations, not quit on himself, and I think he's going to break a guy like Yanal Ashmouz. So I like Trevor Peek here. Give me Trevor Peek, second round TKO. I think he's going to break him towards the late portion of the second round and put him down, and the ref's going to stop it. So give me Trevor Peek. Past the midpoint of the second round, he'll get a TKO just by the pace, the forward pressure, and the combination. So, yeah, I'm going with Peek here. Trevor Peek, second round TKO against Yanal Ashmouz. I don't think this guy's that good, but I know that this guy has heart, and this guy doesn't quit. All right, the next fight up is in the flyweight division. You got a battle between Matt Danger Schnell, who comes in at 16-8, taking on Alessandro Costa, who comes back with a record of 14-4. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. Alessandro Costa is going to finish Matt Schnell. I mean, look, if the fight goes late and Costa gets tired, Matt Schnell does have decent boxing. He moves his head to the left. He rolls underneath. He kind of pushes that head forward to make you think he's closer than he actually is. And then he'll shoot that right hand over your jab. He'll shoot that lead uppercut, or he'll go 5-2. He'll go 2-5-2, come back with the left hook. But this guy's durability, I mean, in certain fights, it looks good. Like, I don't know how he survived in that fight against, what was his name? Sumu Darji, that was it. Sumu Darji. He got rocked with elbows over the top where he went out for a second. He got hit with big right hands, big left hooks, big knees, and it looked like he went out like 20 times in that fight. Somehow he survives, comes back, lands big shots on Sumu Darji, pushes him back, winds up in the top position, and then blocks up a triangle, rolls to his back, and chokes Sumu Darji out cold. That is one of the best comeback wins and the true definition of a comeback win inside the UFC. But against a fighter like Alessandro Costa, who, yes, I do believe will get tired in the second round, get tired in the third round, but I think his forward pressure, those overhand rights, those left hooks, those, kind of slip and roll, bob and weave, Mike Tyson-esque style where he just comes forward, overhand, left hook, uppercut, knees. It's going to be too much for a guy like Schnell. If Alessandro Costa gets tired, then yes, I do think Schnell might be able to take over in the second and in the third round. Don't get me wrong, because we haven't really seen Costa get pushed to the brink, but he went back and forth with Steve Erceg, and I mean, arguably he could have won that fight. But eventually he just got dropped. He got hurt, but he came back. He dropped Steve Erceg. But then we saw Erceg get knocked out by Kai Kara-France. So you got to think, like, how good is Erceg? I think Erceg's one of the best flyweights in the world. Just because he got knocked out by Kai Kara-France, that shouldn't take away from the fact that this guy arguably could have won the flyweight championship off of Alexandre Pantoja. He also had a brutal knockout against Matt Schnell. Jab, right cross to the body, left hook up top, and knocked him out. Basically, one-hitter-quitter knockout against Matt Schnell. We've seen Schnell get knocked out against Mateus Nicolau. We've seen Schnell get knocked out by Steve Erceg. We've seen Schnell get knocked out with ground and pound early in his UFC career. We've seen him get hurt in multiple fights. He does have good jiu-jitsu. He does have good submissions, but No Costa, he also has good jiu-jitsu. He will go for chokes. He'll go for flying arm bars. He'll go for guillotines. I think that even if he hurts Schnell and goes for submissions, Alessandro Costa might win this fight by submission. He has the jiu-jitsu skills to hang with a guy like Schnell, which is usually the advantage that Schnell has, and we've seen Schnell get submitted. He got caught in a guillotine choke after almost submitting Brandon Royval. Royval got out and then put him in his own arm in guillotine choke and got the submission. That was another fight where I think people expected the jiu-jitsu to be on the side of Schnell and the striking to be on the side of Brandon Royval, and Royval comes through and gets a submission. I think later on in this fight, if Costa gets tired, Schnell wins, but I don't think that's what happens. I think Alessandro Costa is going to hurt Schnell early. He's going to hurt Schnell often with that forward pressure, with those uppercuts, the hooks, uppercuts, overhands, big punches, and he's going to have the jiu-jitsu to fall back on to either defend the takedowns or defend it if he gets put on his back on the ground. So I'm going to take Alessandro Costa by knockout. I think he finishes Matt Schnell. I think it's the same song and dance with Schnell where he's got the skills. He's got the overall skills as an MMA fighter. He just doesn't have the durability. And I think Costa's powerful enough and strong enough and well-rounded enough to exploit that durability. And I understand why he's a 5-1 favorite. It makes sense in this fight for me. So give me Alessandro Costa, second round knockout. I think he's going to hurt Schnell. In the first round, he'll survive, and then kind of like the Erceg fight, I think Costa's going to put him out in round 2. So Alessandro Costa, give me no via second round knockout against Matt Schnell. I'm a big proponent of Costa. I think he's very good. I picked against him with Kevin Borjas. I thought that the boxing was going to be too much, but those calf kicks just destroyed the leg of Kevin Borjas, and it was over from there. But give me Costa, second round knockout in this fight against Matt Schnell. All right, the next fight up is in the featherweight division. You have the Mean Machine, Steve Garcia, taking on Kyle the Monster Nelson. I'm going to be honest, this is a pretty good fight as well. I think people are going to look down on this fight and think oh, there's no point if I should watch this. And, there's better fights on the card. There's definitely better fights, man. But these are two guys who I believe are continuously overlooked. Steve Garcia comes in as an underdog in pretty much all of his fights except his last one. And he beat the ever-living shit out of Sung Woo Choi. Beat him up, pushed forward, didn't take a back step, and eventually knocked him out in the first round. Before that, he comes in, I think he's on a 5-fight win streak. He knocks out Chase Hooper early in the first round as over a 2-1 underdog. So he beat Shylon Nurdembeka via second round TKO after surviving the first round, almost getting knocked out multiple times. He knocks out Chase Hooper in the first round. Pretty much the first big punch he landed, he had already beaten, had him beat. He survives the grappling, the back control, and the cage wrestling of Melquiazel Costa, comes in and knocks him out viciously with elbows and ground and pound in the beginning of the second round, and then comes in against Sung Woo Choi and knocks him out in round one. So Steve Garcia, he is a mean fighter. He's going to push the pace. He's going to push forward. He's going to get in your face. He's going to throw big right hands. He's going to throw big... I think he's southpaw, so he'll throw big straight lefts, big right hooks, big overhands, good kicks to the body, and he's just going to try to push forward and knock you out. At the same time, though, he does put himself into positions to get knocked out, to get dropped, to get finished as well. Kyle Nelson did knock out Bill Elgio, like we already touched on. This guy did come in and knock him out early. It was huge odds for Kyle Nelson to win by KO, but the hands down low style, it's not a good look, and eventually, it gets the best of you. When you have that side stance, the hands low, you take a lot of punches, you roll with them. Eventually, you can't roll with enough punches as the ones that are coming at you, and that's what happened, I think. Kyle Nelson just clipped him, hurt him, rocked him, and eventually that was it. He knocked him out early in that fight. That's his last fight. He's coming off that win via TKO. Let me see. What was it? First round? Yeah, 4 minutes of the first round. Then before that, he gets a unanimous decision in Mexico, or at Noche UFC, against Fernando Padilla. And then he won that fight via unanimous decision. I thought it was close, but I think Nelson definitely won the second half of the fight. And then he outstrikes and outlands Blake Bilder, wins that fight via unanimous decision. Before that, he goes to a draw with Duho Choi. But that was a fight where I think Choi won that, definitely won that by decision. I don't know why it was a draw. Before that, he loses a unanimous decision to Jai Herbert. And before that, he gets knocked out by Billy Quarantillo in the beginning of the third round. And then before that, did he beat Reyes? Or, hold on. I don't know. I can't tell about this one. It doesn't look like. Yeah, he had some tough calls earlier in his UFC career, but he's currently on a 3-fight win streak. The knockout over Bill Elgio at the end of round 1, the unanimous decision over Fernando Padilla, and the unanimous decision win over Blake Bilder. Bilder, Padilla, and Elgio, I think those were all fights where people were expecting Kyle Nelson to lose. They were expecting him to get beat. They were expecting him to get finished. In the Bilder fight, they were probably expecting him to get taken down and subbed. In the Padilla fight, they were expecting him to get knocked out. Kyle Nelson is a point fighter. Yes, he knocked out Bill Elgio. We know he has power. He's very technical. He loves that little lead kick to the body. A little lead switch kick to the body. He loves to throw that from his orthodox stance. Throw the right hand behind it. Decent jab, circles, angles out well, right hand. He is very live to catch Steve Garcia when he just comes in and tries to be the marauder that the Mean Machine is. He's going to push forward. He's going to look to get in his face. He's going to look to knock him out. I definitely think he's live to counter Steve Garcia, kind of like a Mahashate, and rock him and hurt him and get him out of there. I do believe that is definitely possible in this fight. But I think the forward pressure, I think the fact that Garcia is going to push that pace, is going to get in the face of Kyle Nelson, I think it's going to make him uncomfortable. And I think at the same time, it's going to make for a very tough fight for Kyle Nelson. If it gets to the late point of the second round into the third round, I do think that Nelson probably takes over and he's going to have the better cardio. But Garcia is not only a striker, even though he uses his striking, he uses his boxing, he uses his vicious, power and combinations on the feet. He can wrestle, he can grapple, he can control from the top, he has good jiu-jitsu, he'll look for submissions, and I believe he is the much more well-rounded fighter. I think that Kyle Nelson is the better point fighter, Kyle Nelson is the better technical fighter, but he's going to fight close, and if Garcia wins, he's going to be winning by landing bigger shots, hurting Kyle Nelson, bloodying him up, taking him down, and just landing the bigger shots and having the much more impactful moments throughout the fight. Nelson is a decent counter striker, so like I said, there is that possibility that Garcia just comes in like a wild man, gets clipped and gets knocked out. But against guys who I tend to fade, I'm going to go with the guy who I backed last time against some people's better judgment who were on the other side. And I'm going to go with the Mean Machine. I'm going with Steve Garcia to win this fight by knockout. I think he is going to finish Kyle Nelson. I think the forward pressure, the combinations, the power, and the wildness of Steve Garcia is going to be too much for the style that Kyle Nelson tries to employ. Because even though Bill Elgio is a very solid striker, a very technical fighter, very side-on fighter, he does not have the power, the forward pressure, and the danger that Steve Garcia is going to present to a guy like Kyle Nelson. So I think the forward pressure, the big shots, the boxing, the combinations, and just the pressure that Garcia is going to apply to a guy like Nelson is going to eventually cause him to break. And if it goes to decision, I think Garcia will have the bigger moments to the point where he probably could win a decision as well. So I'm going to go with Steve Garcia. Give me the Mean Machine, Steve Garcia, to win this fight via second round knockout. I think he is going to catch the chin of Kyle Nelson. I think he's going to put him down. It might not be like a one-hitter quitter shot. It might be, death via accumulation where he just lands a lot of big shots, hurts him, and puts him down. But I like the Mean Machine. Give me Steve Garcia, second round knockout over Kyle Nelson. I like him a lot in this fight. All right, now we're at the co-main event of the evening in the women's flyweight division. You have a battle between the 26-12 former champion and Jessica Bate Estaca Andrade taking on the 17-5 Natalia Silva. I'm going to be honest, I think that this is kind of a tee-up spot for Natalia Silva, but I will say there were points against Viviane Araujo where she got pushed up against the cage. She got held there, she got pushed, she got reversed, and was basically outpowered. And if there's one girl you don't want to get outpowered against, it's a girl like Jessica Andrade. Andrade is going to walk forward. She's going to slip and roll. She's going to bob and weave just like a women's version of Wanderlei Silva. And she's going to come at you with left hooks, overhand rights, jab cross. She has the better jiu-jitsu, I believe. I think Andrade has the better jiu-jitsu. But I will say that I think this fight plays out on the feet, and I think that 3-inch reach advantage is going to be a big problem for a girl like Andrade. Andrade has made a career out of fighting taller girls, though, so there is that potential that Andrade just walks forward, bullies Natalia Silva, catches her with a big left hook, catches her with a big overhand right, catches her with that uppercut up the middle, and then just pushes her up against the cage and tries to control her in the over-under position. And maybe she wins this fight just based off controlling and being stronger in the clinch. But I think the kicking game of Natalia Silva is levels above a fighter like Andrade. The side kicks, the head kicks, the lead head kicks, the rear head kicks, spinning back kicks to the head, back kicks to the body, the 1-2s. I think the range and distance is going to be just a huge problem for a girl like Andrade. And, against some fighters, you're able to get away with it, but I kind of feel like this is a more dangerous version of a Rose Namajunas. She can stay on the outside. She kind of hops in and out in that traditional karate-style stance. 1-2, lead head kick, rear head kick, spinning back kick. You don't want to give your back up against a fighter like Andrade, and you don't want to allow her to close the distance and get into those grappling exchanges where maybe she can go for an arm triangle like she did against Amanda Lemos. And Lemos is a very powerful girl as well. I was very surprised that Andrade was able to get to that position and finish it standing up. That just goes to show you how strong this girl is in close. And with this fight, in close, it's Andrade's fight. Forward pressure, cage pushing, shots to the body, coming up top with big combinations. But at range and distance, it's Natalia Silva all day. I thought Natalia Silva was going to be able to finish Viviane Araujo. It looked like at certain points she was going to, but again, she got outpowered and muscled in that fight, and that's part of the reason why I think Andrade does have a shot. She could push Natalia Silva up against the cage, explode with body shots and hooks to the head, go back into the clinch in the over-under position, land knees to the thigh, land knees up top to the head, and there's definitely that possibility that Andrade just makes this dirty, makes this nasty, and makes it mean, and she wins this fight. There's definitely that case, and that could happen, but I think the range, the distance control is going to be too much. I thought Marina Rodriguez won the fight against Andrade, but, my friends told me I was smoking crack, and that's not what happened, so I didn't go back and watch that for this fight, but it is a similar stylistic matchup, but the kicks of Natalia Silva with the speed, the technique, and the power compared to Marina Rodriguez, it's nowhere near, and that's the biggest difference here. The boxing might be close between Natalia Silva and Marina Rodriguez, but the kicking is where the biggest advantage is. The fast twitch muscle, the switch kick to the head, the spinning kick to the body, the spinning kick to the head, the front kick to the body, I think it's going to make it very hard for Andrade to walk in, and the kicks are going to set up the punches. It's not going to be punches to kicks for Natalia Silva, it's going to be kicks to punches. She's going to set up the combinations with the kick and then catch her with the straight punches as she's coming in. I'm going to go Natalia Silva by finish. I think she is going to knock out Jessica Andrade. Andrade has not been TKO'd many times in her career, but I predicted a TKO win for Marina Rodriguez. We didn't get it. I did predict Yan Xiaonan to knock out Jessica Andrade, and that was at plus 1,000. I think Natalia Silva, her kicks are going to be too fast and too powerful, and Andrade is going to walk into them, and she's going to get TKO'd. So give me Natalia Silva with a body kick TKO against Jessica Andrade. I think she's going to hurt her stepping in with a spinning kick to the body or a switch kick to the body. Maybe it could be to the head, but I think she kicks her to the body, drops her, and slumps her with a good body shot. So give me Natalia Silva. Second round body shot TKO with a kick to the body. I think she's going to finish Andrade, and I think Natalia Silva is for real. I am worried about the in-close fighting, like we already talked about, but I definitely think that Natalia Silva gets the win here, and I think she does so via a finish. All right, and now we're at the main event of the evening in the welterweight division between Gilbert Durinho Burns and Sean Brady. This is a really good fight. This is really good matchmaking. The UFC definitely did the right thing here. I feel like they're trying to feed a declining Gilbert Burns to a Sean Brady. I felt the same way with the Jack Della Maddalena fight, where I thought Jack Della Maddalena was going to TKO Gilbert Burns, and he did, but he did it a lot later than I thought, and the fight was a lot closer than I expected it to be. It wasn't that close on the feet. Jack Della was out striking him or outlanding him. But when Gilbert Burns shot in on takedowns, he was able to get control. He was able to control him from the back and really win the fight just based off of his grappling control. Not even ground and pound. Went for a couple submission attempts, but at the end, in the third round, Jack Della was able to kick off the fence, get back to the feet, time the level change with a knee, and then jump on him with ground and pound to finish him off in round 3. This fight, it's going to be the fact of Gilbert Burns being much better than Sean Brady on the feet. But I will say, and this is not a knock on Gilbert Burns, but his striking is overrated. Not because I don't think he has power. Burns has power. He can clip Sean Brady on the chin and knock him out. I mean, Brady was getting rocked at certain points against Michael Chiesa, got TKO'd by the now welterweight champion in Bilal Muhammad, so that loss doesn't look that terrible, but still got finished by him, so, it is what it is. But Burns is not a volume striker, to the point where if he hurts Sean Brady, it's not going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 punches. Burns kind of looks for one big shot, a big left hook, a big right hand, a big overhand right, a big jab. That's kind of what Burns looks for. And I think that singular style of punching might play into the favor of Sean Brady, where Brady can win some exchanges on the feet. Now, the best way for Brady to win is to use his wrestling, use his top control, and use what I believe to be the best grappling in the welterweight division. This guy, once he gets you to the mat, it's very hard to get back up. He's very good at controlling your legs. He's good at controlling you from the half guard and using the Dagestani wrist ride to break your posture and break your base on the other side. Land ground and pound, move over to the triangle leg mount like Khabib. Using the cage to out-grapple you. That's something that Brady does very well. Even getting one hook in, but then using like the foot as a base, so standing almost putting the foot down to the mat and using that to elevate above the opponent to get a higher ground and be able to put more pressure on the back, on the legs, and just break the base down further. Go for punches, go back to the wrist ride, punches, back to the wrist ride, threaten with the neck, drag the opponent back down to their back, get to side control, get to the full mount. He is a motherfucker when it hits the mat. And I think he's a much better grappler than Burns once the fight hits the mat. It's going to be a little bit hard to get Gilbert Burns down, but I think Brady will be able to control Gilbert Burns from the top position for the majority of this fight. I really do. I know Khamzat had some trouble taking down Gilbert Burns, but I believe Brady to be probably not as strong of a wrestler as Khamzat. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody, but very good at controlling, moving from position to position, setting up the position before the submission. But on the feet, Burns is live for a knockout. Brady does not like getting hit, but his striking looked better against Kelvin Gastelum. He used a good left hook, used a good right hand. He was very good at getting that outside foot against the southpaw. But being in the same stance, that right hand from Gilbert Burns is going to be right down the middle. The left hook, which he used to drop and knock down Damian Maia, that's going to be there. And the longer that this fight stays on the feet, Brady is in for a world of trouble. I'm not going to sit here and lie. Even though I'm a big fan of Brady, he is going to be in some trouble if he prolongs the exchanges on the feet. But I will say that a lot of people are going to think that Brady wins by submission. I think it's very hard to submit Gilbert Burns. So if Brady gets a finish, I think it's just a attritional finish, getting a lot of takedowns, getting a lot of control, and I think eventually he just flattens out Burns and lands a bunch of ground and pound and the ref stops it. I could see a rear naked choke after landing a bunch of ground and pound, but I think the control and the pressure of Brady on top is going to be a lot for a guy like Burns to deal with. Now, Burns is the best grappler, aside from Bilal Muhammad, that Brady has fought, but even in the Bilal Muhammad and Gilbert Burns fight, Bilal didn't really use any grappling. He outstruck Gilbert Burns. I feel like Brady's a better striker. I know he got knocked out by Bilal Muhammad. He doesn't like to get hit, but I feel like Brady can compete with Burns on the feet. We also know that Burns, for just as chinny as Brady is, you can't really call him chinny because he's only been finished one time in his career, only lost one fight in his career, coming in at 16-1. But we've seen Burns get rocked, we've seen Burns get dropped, we've seen Burns get wobbled, and we've seen him get finished multiple times. I don't think Burns has the best chin either. So I kind of feel like both of these guys have durability issues on the feet. Burns is the much more powerful striker. He definitely has the one-shot knockout power in this fight, but he lacks the volume that I think can really drown a guy like Sean Brady. He lacks the output and the volume. It's more just one or two big shots. He has good takedowns of his own, but I don't think he's going to be able to control a guy like Brady once the fight hits the mat. And if Brady's on top of him, I think he's going to be able to use his pressure, use his top control, use the wrist rides, use the cage and the cage pushing and the wrestling to control Gilbert Burns and just wear him out till eventually I think he just breaks down Gilbert Burns and gets a TKO finish on the ground. I do not think he knocks Burns out on the feet, but I wouldn't be surprised if he caught him with that check left hook as he stepped in, just like he caught Jake Matthews with. Burns is chinny. He can definitely get caught with a counter by Brady and get put down, but I think he's going to constantly rinse and repeat. He'll be able to compete on the feet, which will make Burns a little bit more weary to throw his shots, which will open up the wrestling and the takedowns of Brady. Brady's going to control from the top position, flatten him out, use a lot of chest pressure and just body pressure, putting it on him, controlling the wrist, wrapping up the legs, and I think he's just going to beat him up, threaten a submission, beat him up, threaten a submission, until eventually he just gets on top, flattens him out, belly down, and then the ref stops it for a TKO. So I'm going to go with Sean Brady to get another win and win his first UFC main event via a 4th round ground and pound TKO against Gilbert Durinho Burns. I think he's live for a rear naked choke. I think he's live to get a submission in this fight. I think a lot of people underestimate Brady's ability. I think he's kind of been underestimated for a majority of his UFC career, and I think a lot of people are just looking at the Gilbert Burns that Burns used to be and not the Burns that he is now, and I think Brady gets an impressive win and an emphatic finish. I'm going Sean Brady via 4th round TKO against Gilbert Burns to line himself up for potentially a title shot at 170 pounds. But the pick is Sean Brady via TKO in the main event of UFC Vegas 97. I'm your host, Double M. I hope you guys enjoyed my preview, predictions, and breakdown for this card. If you did, leave me your predictions and picks in the comment section of this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and smash the notification bell with ground and pound to a rear naked choke so you don't miss any future uploads from the premier MMA and pro wrestling channel on YouTube. I'm your host, Double M, and let's make some money this weekend at UFC Vegas 97.